That Sunday afternoon, they called her a thief and dragged her from the only home she knew. No questions, no mercy. She gave them everything, and they threw her away like nothing. Now, she was facing prison for a crime she didn't commit. Before we dive in, I know many of you are watching from all corners of the world, brought together by a shared love for African stories. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. I'll be in the comments connecting with you. And if you're enjoying this kind of storytelling, a like and a subscription would truly mean a lot. Once upon a time, in a wealthy estate just outside Lagos City, lived a billionaire businessman named Chief Beao. He was the kind of man whose name made politicians lower their voices and bankers stand straighter. His mansion stretched across 5 acres, with gates taller than most houses. Inside that house lived his family, and one kind servant girl. Her name was Mimi. She came from a small village where women fetched water before sunrise and hard work was important. She was only 19 when a cousin brought her to the city to find work. After 5 long years of sweeping, scrubbing, cooking, and enduring, Mimi was now 24. Mimi didn't complain when she was asked to wake at 5 a.m., clean 12 rooms, cook 3 meals, and wash 5 cars. She did it with the quiet grace of someone who had known hunger and slept under leaky roofs. She was smart. She was fast. She never answered back, even when Madame Shola, Chief Beao's wife, threw plates or shouted insults. She would bend slightly, apologize, and continue sweeping. But in the house of Chief Beao, not everyone was harsh. Stella, the chief's only daughter, had just returned from university in South Africa. She was different from the rest of the family, gentle, calm, always smiling at the staff. She noticed Mimi on the first week of her return. "You're the only one always working," Stella said one evening. "Come, eat something." From then on, she became like an older sister. She gave Mimi old dresses, some perfume, and even small allowances from her purse. "You're not a maid," Stella would whisper. "You're now my baby sister. From today, anything you need, just ask me. Do not hesitate." And if Stella was the light in that house, David was the darkness. Chief Beao's only son, David, was a spoiled 27-year-old who treated people like wrappers, used them and threw them away. He was tall, well-dressed, and always had girls around him. But for some reason, his eyes kept following Mimi. He would walk past her while she scrubbed the floor and pause. "You're too pretty for this job," he would often say as she worked. She always ignored him. He would walk into the kitchen and lean against the fridge. "Come and play with me in my room." Mimi never met his eyes, just nodded and went on sweeping. One afternoon, the house was unusually empty. Madame Shola had gone for a wedding, Chief Beao was overseas, and most of the staff were out buying groceries from the market. Only David and Mimi were home. "Clean my room," he shouted from the hallway. Mimi hesitated, her fingers tightening around the mop. "Come and clean it now." She walked up the stairs slowly. David's room smelled of alcohol and smoke. As she entered, he closed the door behind her. Before she could turn around, he grabbed her wrist. "I've been patient long enough," he said. "Don't pretend you haven't noticed." Mimi struggled. "Leave me alone." She kicked him and ran out of the room, heart pounding. She ran outside, tears in her eyes, and waited in the laundry room until the other staff returned. Later that evening, when Stella came back from her errands, Mimi told her everything. Stella didn't ask questions. She didn't doubt her. The next day, while David was showing off to his friends in the compound, Stella walked straight up to him. "If you touch her again," she said loudly, "I'll make sure you regret it. Don't think being a member of this family protects you from shame." David laughed nervously in front of his friends, but Mimi saw it, the tightness in his jaw, the way his fist clenched. He would not forget this. He would not forgive it. 3 weeks passed. The house settled again. David avoided Mimi. Madame Scholler complained less. Stella had left on a business trip to Abuja. Then one Sunday afternoon, chaos broke loose. Madame Scholler had dressed in her gold wrapper and matching head tie. Her driver waited by the gate to take her to a women's gala, but she couldn't find her diamond necklace. The one worth 17 million naira. She tore through her closet, tossed dresses across the room. Her voice rang through the mansion. "Where are my diamonds? Where are they?" David entered her room, calm. "I saw Mimi acting strange," he said. "She was in her room this morning when she should have been downstairs." Madame Scholler's eyes widened. Within minutes, the household gathered in the living room. Mimi was called in. She came quietly, still wearing her apron. "Mimi, where are my diamonds?" Madame Scholler screamed. I don't know, Ma," Mimi stuttered. David stepped forward. "Search her bag. She's hiding something." Mimi gasped. "Please, I didn't." But no one listened. Her small wooden box was dragged from under her bed. Her clothes thrown to the floor. And then, it fell out. A velvet pouch. Inside, the diamond necklace. Mimi's knees buckled. "No, I don't know how that got in there. I swear." Madame Scholler slapped her so hard she stumbled backward. "Thief!" David smiled. The security guards grabbed her. "No, please, please call Auntie Stella. She knows me. I didn't do this." "She's in Abuja," David replied coldly. "And you'll be long gone by the time she returns." Mimi cried. Her hands trembled. Her world spun. The maid who never talked back. The girl who worked until her fingers bled. The one who swept their floors, washed their dishes, and protected their secrets. Labeled a thief. Dragged out of the gates. And behind the curtain, David laughed. When Stella returned from her business trip, she noticed it immediately. Something was off. Mimi's familiar face was not there to welcome her, no soft smile, no gentle voice asking if she wanted water or rest. At first, Stella assumed Mimi was out on an errand. But when the evening came and there was still no sign of her, worry began to creep in. Later that night, she asked the cook where Mimi was. She hasn't returned," the cook said, eyes shifting nervously. Stella stepped forward, her voice firm. "Where is Mimi?" The cook hesitated, glancing around. David had warned everyone to lie, that Mimi had run away. But Stella's eyes, sharp and unrelenting, broke through her fear. Madame Scholler was looking for her diamond necklace, the cook began. She accused Mimi. They searched her bags and found it. Then the security dragged her out and handed her to the police. Stella didn't say a word. She turned and walked away, her pace picking up with every step until she reached David's room. She didn't knock. The door burst open, revealing bottles of beer, the stench of stale smoke, and David lounging on his bed. "What have you done to that poor girl? Where is she? If anything happens to her, I will." Before Stella could respond, Madame Scholler appeared, arms folded, her voice cutting through the tension. "Leave your brother alone. That girl is a thief. David is a hero for catching her." Stella said nothing more. She left the room, but David saw the look in her eyes. Beneath her silence was fire, and he had always feared what his sister could do when she meant it. That night, Stella drove through the bustling chaos of Lagos. The bright lights, honking cars, and dense traffic couldn't distract her from her goal. She visited one police station after another, asking, pleading, searching. The officers barely looked up, and when they did, they shrugged or asked for a bribe. Finally, after nearly 5 hours of driving, questioning, and fighting back tears of frustration, she found her. Mimi looked pale, thinner, her eyes swollen from crying. Her clothes were wrinkled and stained, and she sat quietly in a corner like a discarded object. "I swear, Auntie Stella? I didn't take it," Mimi said, voice trembling. "She said she'll press charges. I'm scared. I don't want to go to prison." Stella hugged her tightly. Her arms wrapped around Mimi like a shield. "I believe you. I promise, I won't let anything happen to you." She bribed one of the policewomen to get Mimi food and soap. The officer looked away, took the money without a word, and brought back a small sachet of water and a loaf of bread. It wasn't much, but it was all Mimi had eaten in 2 days. That night, Stella couldn't sleep. The thought of Mimi, locked up, humiliated for something she didn't do, ate away at her. Every second felt like betrayal. Days passed. Then weeks. 3 long weeks. David, meanwhile, was out drinking, partying, laughing with his friends. Madame Scholler had thrown a small party to celebrate catching the thief. Stella walked through the house, her mind in knots. The guilt, the helplessness, it was unbearable. She couldn't look at the maids without seeing fear in their eyes. She couldn't sleep without dreaming of Mimi's swollen face and trembling hands. Then, just as she was about to give up, one of the housemaids approached her. "Ma, I have something to show you," she said, hand shaking as she held out her phone. On the screen was a video. Grainy but clear enough. David, peeking around, slipping the diamond necklace into Mimi's bag through the window. Stella's heart dropped. Rage boiled inside her. "Why didn't you show this before?" "I was scared. I didn't want to lose my job. But I can't keep this anymore." Stella thanked her and took the phone. She didn't rush. She sat and thought. If she showed this now, David might spin another lie. She needed more. Just as she was thinking, the office called. The accountant. "Miss Stella, I thought you should know. There have been some irregular transactions. It looks like David has been siphoning money from the company. Subtle, but consistent." That was it. Everything she needed. The next morning, as David prepared to drive out in his new convertible, whistling a tune and wearing sunglasses like a celebrity, a black police van pulled into the compound. Out stepped Stella with 2 officers. "David Beao, you are under arrest for embezzling company funds and for the theft of Madame Scholler's diamond necklace." "What nonsense is this?" shouted Madame Scholler, rushing out in her satin robe. "He's innocent. You will not take my son." David tried to laugh it off, but his face went pale as the officers grabbed his arms. As he was led into the van, he gave Stella a defiant smirk. He knew his stay in jail wouldn't be long. He had connections. Powerful ones. But Stella didn't care. She turned to the officers. "Don't let him call anyone. Not a single phone call." Later that day, Mimi was released. When Stella met her at the station, they ran to each other and hugged tightly. Both cried, not just out of relief, but out of the bond forged in suffering. "You're safe now," Stella whispered. Mimi said nothing. She only held Stella tighter, tears soaking her shoulder. David, as expected, was released the next day. But when Chief Beao returned from his overseas trip and heard the full story, including the embezzlement and how David framed Mimi, his fury shook the entire household. "You're no longer my son," he said to David. "Leave this house. Fend for yourself." David stood still, stunned. His charm couldn't save him. Not this time. That evening, Stella didn't take Mimi back to the Beao mansion. Instead, she took her to her new apartment in Abuja. A quiet, secure place with tall windows and soft lighting. "You're not my maid anymore," she said. "You're my sister. You're going to school, Mimi. I'll pay for everything. And one day, you'll work with me at the company." Mimi wept again. But this time, it wasn't out of fear. It was the sound of hope. And as she stepped into that new home, the world finally opened a door that had been shut on her for years. Not every story ends in ruin, some end with justice, even if delayed. If this story moved you, don't scroll past. Share it. Comment your thoughts. And subscribe to hear more true-to-heart African stories that give voice to those who have none.